am going to tell all of my students that I got to teach you a trick on Zoom. That's awesome. Sara Johnston, thank you so much for your time. You are like the queen. And so here I am teaching a promotions class, and you know, my dear friend is, you're always so generous with your time. I explained to you the challenge before our promotions class, and I explained to you about what the C5 structure is. So what do you think? What kinds of things should they be focusing on and spending their time fixing?
Yes. Well, thanks so much for having me. And it's so nice to meet all of you and all of your students virtually. And I hope that sometime in the future we can meet in person or meet virtually, like live, where we're having a conversation.
You know what, Sara? I hope the first time you meet them is in an interview and you hire them.
Yes, that could be. Um, uh, so we actually are hiring for an account executive position right now. So just tidbit, and keep your ears open. And yes, but thanks so much for asking me. And it's so exciting the work that you're doing, and just really an innovative approach. I love what you talked about in terms of the C5 structure and how that works and how all the classes kind of work together. And I see a lot of parallels with that in to agency life. So just to give a little bit of background about my agency, I'm a partner with DH, which stands for Disatel Hagee. We're in our 25th year now as a company, and I've been with the company for 23 years. Um, and working from home right now, as many of us are. And on my team, we have 28 people, and it's a pretty integrated team. So we have a creative services team that's about 10 people, and there's videographers and designers and web developers who are all part of that team. We have an accounts team, which they do most of our client relations and kind of client interface. We have a media team that takes care of all the and placed media. So everything from like planning to implementing to measuring kind of results of big campaigns that we work on. And they're doing that like with digital and traditional media. So much of our work is in digital now. My role with the company is I'm a partner, and I get to work on accounts as well as work with my team. I oversee the operations team and our media team, but have really kind of grown up in agency life and worked on hundreds of campaigns over the years. But we're currently doing quite a bit of work on COVID-19 and the just kind of this huge concerted effort. So we have a client right now. So how we're working on it is kind of varies client to client. One is we work with Spokane Public Schools and help them with all their communications around COVID-19 and planning. We also work with the Washington State Department of Health. And so the Department of Health their responsibility is to kind of educate all across the state to take the governor's orders, whatever they are at that time, and provide tools across the state to really like help share from a safety and vaccine perspective, how people can connect with vaccines and more information about vaccines and more information about coronavirus. So they're very much like the Department of Health is the authority in our state on kind of all things coronavirus. Our firm has they hired us on to really work with special audiences and populations. So these are what are traditionally underserved populations, can be minority populations, disability population, like age specific populations we work with as well. Our role is to really get information to these different groups of people in an effective way to kind of meet them where they are. And I think that is, in the whole history with the firm, that's one of the things that we really work to do, is really understand where our audiences are and the people we're trying to communicate with, and meet them where they are with kind of the exact tools that they need. So I'll give a couple of examples about this and talk a little bit more about it. But our process has really started with, we established a kind of multidisciplinary team within our firm to work on this account. And so there's about 8 people within the firm that are really close to it, that are like tracking all the information, that are working with clients. That's kind of the sorry. And I hear my little Bambino crying in the background.
Hey, and if bring him in, he is so, of course, he's so welcome. He's going to be a genius when it comes to marketing by the time he's 4, if he keeps listening to this.
Or he'll completely tune it out and be like, what are you talking about? It's nap time. So sorry, got a little distracted. But we brought this team together, much like the C5 effort, and your teams, of how you're approaching that work. So it brought this team together, brought in experts, subject matter experts. So we have people who are kind of experts on different populations. So for example, one of the groups that the Department of Health is really trying to reach, audiences that we're helping them reach, are the Russian-Ukrainian population in the state of Washington. Because there's a different cultural barriers to getting the vaccine, even getting information. There's different kind of information that they currently have. There's different cultural norms, right? There's different barriers that this population faces that other populations don't face. So our first step when kind of working with this specific group was to just come in and really try to research. So we have a person who's part of this community. She's Ukrainian, I believe, and brought her in and really interviewed her and picked her brain and kind of talked with her about all of the barriers that exist to getting information and vaccine. It's kind of working through vaccine hesitancy with this population, and really doing our homework in that way. So that's kind of been, in much of our work, the first step is to really research, right? And try to bring in as much information as you can from all different sources. And we also do a ton of secondary research and like media analysis on a daily basis. Like we're always reading up on what's in the New York Times and what's in the Spokesman and Seattle Times, and it kind of look at what's going on from a national perspective, and then drilling that down to our population as well.
Just in general, you should know what's going on. You should understand the lay of the land. Can I ask you something, Sarah? When you were talking specifically about the COVID venture that your business is undertaking, I'm trying to think in general terms, and it looked fairly clear that every single specific item you mentioned about this particular project is applicable to pretty much everything. And as you were talking, what I wrote down was, you got to do 4 things as you begin a campaign. Identify who you want to move, figure out where they live, figure out what language they speak, and that's deep because in all senses, and then figure out what do you want them to do. Now, I'm not a partner in a marketing firm, but how would you articulate those things that are always true that a promotions team needs to do when they first hop onto a project?
Yeah, I think you just did it. I don't know, let's get too much better than that, right? Yeah, I think that's exactly it. So it's audience research, really understanding who your audience is, bringing in subject matter experts, identifying the message. What is it that we want to communicate? And what will be authentic to our audience, right? So if your audience is just for example, 16 to 24-year-olds, and you're coming in with kind of government ease and
Right,
language that
right.
doesn't work with them at all, it's like they're tuning you out. So I think it's really important to work up a really smart messaging that meets the audience where they are and is authentically connecting with them. And then from there, I mean, I think it's really about developing kind of the strategies and tactics, right? So that I think of this as like all the things and stuff of like how you'll get the word out, and how you'll communicate your message, and connect. And with our Department of Health work, we're kind of approaching this in a different way, in kind of a deeper way. So our standard that we typically work on when we're building out strategies and tactics is identifying, okay, well, what are the shows that this audience group watches or pays attention to? What are the media outlets that they go to? Are they on Snapchat? Are they on, so we kind of go through the whole media
Mhm.
inventory and essentially create the tools that are going to meet them. So sometimes that's a video, sometimes that's the Facebook ad, sometimes that's a poster, right? Like
But
if it,
now, I beg your pardon. Yeah, sure, but let's turn the wheel back just a little bit. And do you have your own research department? Do you conduct your own research projects?
we do, yep, for quite a few. Well, I would say we conduct almost all of our qualitative research. So that qualitative is things like interviews and focus groups, and where you have kind of a smaller number of people, but you're really working to
Mhm.
understand deep themes. And then if we need to conduct quantitative research in the form of a survey of where you need a phone bank kind of thing, we would work with another outside firm. We don't have in-house, like we can design the survey and manage it, but we don't often do quant work in-house. We also have a pretty deep Scarborough and Prime Lingo tools. So those are based on well, kind of all the data that we have from Nielsen and Arbitron. So that's all of our radio, TV,
Mhm.
media consumption habits. So we can look at and know in the state of Washington or in the state of Idaho how many people watch a specific show, or we can look at number of people who have health insurance, or we can look at number of people who have gone to a grocery store in the last week. So it gives us that kind of data, which we often build what we call personas from. So these are audience personas of where we really try to understand that group that we're reaching. So we pull in all the like qualitative data, quantitative data. There's also like just through the library, there's great resources that you can find on building personas and kind of demographic information. So I mean that's a great resource that we use often to really understand what are all the demographics, psychographics, what will move our audience, kind of reach our audience first of all, but then what kind of tools will move them um, in the way that we need to.
Mhm.
Does
Mhm.
that help from a research
Oh,
standpoint?
completely. You were mentioning how your teams are organized. There's media, there's account executives, and so we don't need account executives. Um, but as you see, and you know what our goal is. I described to you that other classes are also going to be populating the site with their content. But what's your gut telling you about ways to organize the effort for the promotions class? About 20, yeah.
Yeah, I think well, staying in really close collaboration and communication with all of the other groups. So kind of understanding your shared approach. Well, and creating that shared approach, right? So
Correct.
brainstorming through it together, whether that's done in email or Slack or in phone calls or Zoom calls, really trying to get like a great grounding of what's our plan, what's our approach, and kind of the who does what, how you'll divide and conquer roles and responsibilities. And maybe that's already built into the structure and the process that you have. But having like really clear roles and responsibilities around who does what, so that you can just hit it and make the biggest impact that you can, right? And create the a really smart campaign. Oh, we actually are working with a group out of, I want to say they're from Western Washington University. And so this is just a sharing why like the type of work that you're doing in your classes is so important and can get out in the world, right? And is useful is so there's a group out of Western Washington, and they created it's a student group, and they created a campaign called COVID IRL. And I think it was it was an effort focused on campus really and for the university. They presented that at a Pacific Northwest Social Marketing Association, which I'm on the board of. But they presented at this big conference, which, I mean, everybody else in the conference is people who've been in the field for a really long time. And so it's great having this student group come in and present. And now our firm is working hand in hand with this student group because their county, I think it's Bellingham County or something.
Whatcom?
Yes, thank you, Whatcom. Get the word out more. Oh, and I might have lost you, Dan.
Yes, right after Whatcom County. So you're teaming up with Western Washington University.
Yeah. And are you Western, and you froze again. Oh, the joys of technology.
I know, right?
So yes, teaming up with Western Washington University and this student group and the county, Whatcom County, I think their health department. I'm not on this account specifically, so I might be speaking out of school a little bit, but our goal is to come in and support all the great work that's already been done and just help expand it, right? So we'll help it basically get out in the field. So we'll help purchase the media, refine the messaging a little bit, but for the most part, the campaign's there and it's working. And so, I mean, I think all that to say, I think it's really exciting, the work that you're doing and your classes are doing, because it's, well, it's part of this larger effort that is saving lives and making a difference for people. And so thank you for that.
Well, I mean, in this particular sense, coping with COVID's head game, it is dealing with a particular area of health called mental health. But I still take that point, and thanks for your encouraging words. The last thing is for any campaign, you need to be able to say, yay, we did it, or shoot, we need to. So assessment. In a case like this, where every member of the C5 project has the goal of helping people deal with COVID's head game. How does a promotional team assess their work?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, I think that it's based on the strategies and tactics, the things and stuff that you end up doing. And typically with measurement, there's kind of two forms of measurement: outcome measures and output measures. Uh, and I mean, that's a very simplistic way to look at it, but I can talk a little bit more about it. So output measures are measuring number of posters that were created, measuring the number of kind of, maybe you sent out emails to, that was part, you had a big email promotion and that was part of your work, or maybe it's direct mail. So it's like documenting and measuring the number of things that you sent out.
Whether it was effective or not, well, that metric doesn't tell you whether it was effective or not. It just tells you how often it happened.
Right. Yep. Yeah. So like if your goal was to have people call a hotline if they were having trouble, like really coping with all things COVID, one of the output measures would be number of people who called the hotline. And or like clicked on a website or clicked on an ad. And those would all kind of be output measures. If you're buying media at all, so purchasing digital ads or TV or radio, your reach and frequency is also a measure. So that's the population that you reach. So 70% of the 18 to 24-year-old DMA, and you reach them 7 times with your message, which it would be a frequency. So that's another kind of measure. Now, outcome measures are how did we make a difference? How do we make an impact or move the needle? And this is really a lot harder to measure, but possible. So you can do it, and it really goes back to your original research that you do. So for example, like if you start your project with focus groups, those could really serve as your benchmark. And like in those focus groups, say you asked a group of people, your focus group, about how they were, like, what were some of the biggest issues that they were having, or what they would do if they were really struggling with heightened stress and because of COVID. Like that would be your benchmark of, you'd kind of hear what they have to say, and then the kind of post. So, and then you run your campaign, and then the post measurement would be coming and doing another focus group and
same
asking
people.
Absolutely. Yeah, you could sure follow up with them. And did you see the messages that we put out, or did you see the XYZ? What do you think of this? You can even test creative in those, right? Of where you
Oh my
share.
Lord, this is gargantuan, because we're going to start this like in a week, and I have all the focus group members I want, and they're students in other classes, and not mine, but their professors are my dear friends, and I'll say, give me 10 names, man, or 20. I mean, like, I'm okay being real small. Give me 20, and we'll start this process with them. Freaking problem solved. And in addition to that, I'm so impressed by you, and I liked you when you were nobody. You've always been somebody to me, and it's just so it's so awesome to just like, it's like watching you say, excuse me, I'm Tom Brady, I'm gonna win the Super Bowl, right? I'm Sara Johnston, this is my thing. And just seeing how your brain works, and seeing how wonderful you are, and how really in control you are as a communicator. You're really, really gifted, and you're a fantastic listener. Ugh.
Thanks, Dan.
Oh my God, thank you. And oh my gosh, we're still recording. I'll stop here.